Hey there, Andrew here, welcoming you to another episode of Research and Reviews. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Grimberg Carry. All right, today we have 6 points we'll be covering: order turnaround and customer experience, shipping experience, overall size comparison, the question of 16-gram cartridges, user experience, and overall functionality. So let's talk about order turnaround and customer experience. From the day that I placed the order to the day that my carry arrived, 112 days passed. I realized that the carry was in high demand, and so I expected a long wait time. But the question is, was it worth it? We're going to cover that in a moment. Now let's talk about shipping experience. My carry was shipped USPS priority. It arrived during the time period expected, and there weren't any unusual delays. There were, however, some issues with the box. These issues, I need to point out, had nothing to do with Grimberg. This was all USPS stuff. The box arrived with a note attached informing me that they were sorry that my order had somehow been damaged. The box itself seemed to be intact, but it was also partially covered with some sort of gray absorbent material. As I opened the box, I found that there were some sort of oily type stains on the outside. As I opened the box, however, I noticed that there were no stains on the inside. What that told me was that some other box evidently had an oily substance that had leaked onto my box, and it gave the impression that my box had something inside that had leaked. And then when they picked the box up and shook it, and they heard the jewels rolling around or sliding around in the box, they just presumed something had broken. And so they wrapped mine in that extra absorbent material and sent the apology note along the way. Thankfully, though, when I opened the box, there was no damage to any of the contents of the package. All right, next let's talk about size comparison. Many of the content creators out there have made mention of how small the carry is. My observation, though, is that, well, the carry is kind of small, but not really. This is what I mean. When compared to other launchers, yes, the carry is quite small. But when compared to firearms that I might carry instead of the Grimberg, that's another matter. For your reference, you can see here the carry as compared to my 380 M&P Bodyguard, and clearly the carry is gigantic in comparison. Next, we'll take a look at the carry in comparison to the M&P Shield. Again, they're a little closer, but still the carry is significantly larger. It's not until we compare it to my M&P 2.040 cal, which is a full-size pistol, that you see a pretty close comparison in size. So, is the Grimberg carry small? Well, yes, if you're comparing it with other launchers. If you're comparing it with firearm options, not so much. It's about the same size as a full-size pistol. Now let's talk about CO2 cartridge compatibility. The Grimberg carry requires threaded CO2 cartridges, and according to their manual, it will accept 8-gram, 12-gram, and 16-gram cartridges. I've noticed a lot of concern, however, on the 16-gram option. Specifically, some have suggested that the 16-gram really isn't good for the carry, could cause damage, may malfunction, and such. Since the 16-gram was still listed in the Grimberg carry manual as of the production of this video at least, I decided to contact Grimberg themselves. When I posed the question to them, their answer was this. They noted that in some environments there have been issues with the use of the 16-gram cartridges. It was noted that when there were high temperatures involved, such as you might experience in the southern United States during the summertime, that functionality issues occasionally would come up. Their final answer to me was that if unusual temperatures are not involved, that the 16-gram cartridges should work fine. I tested all 3 sizes of cartridge, and while I didn't have any heat-related issues with the 16-gram, I did have another issue that I'll share with you right now. For comparison, I have a 12 and a 16 here, and if you'll notice here, I don't know if you can see that very well, but notice how it's pierced directly center on the 12. It was also the same on the 8, but take a look at this 16. Notice that the piercing hole is off to the side a little bit. I think I know why. When I screwed the 16 gram into the launcher, I noticed that it was just ever so slightly canted in the channel. What this told me was that the mechanism inside the channel wasn't exactly perpendicular to the channel that the cartridge screws into. Because of the larger size of the 16 gram cartridge, there wasn't enough wiggle room for it to screw in effortlessly. Because of that, I had to screw it in a little bit further, and it took a little more effort to get everything to seal properly. I didn't have this problem with the 8 or the 12 because there was more room for clearance. So yes, the 16 gram worked for me, but it was a little bit more effort, and I had to screw it in a little bit further to get a good seal. Now let's talk about user experience. When I put in the 8 gram cartridge, I just couldn't twist it enough to get it to pressurize. I don't know if it's because of my age and a loss of strength in my hand, or if it's a matter of breaking the mechanism in, but I just absolutely could not twist the 8 gram. So I switched it out for the 12, and I had the same problem. Finally, after I put the 16 gram in, I was able to get the launcher to pressurize, but even then, it was a lot of effort. This problem rendered the launcher unusable for me. I was able to create a workaround though. I fashioned a thumb turn apparatus made out of a zip tie and affixed it at the base of the CO2 cartridges. That small protrusion was all it took for me to be able to easily pressurize the carry. Eventually, I improved the process by supergluing small little protrusions on the bases of the CO2 cartridges. And with those in place, pressurizing is quite simple. Now, if any of you have ideas on an easy pop-on, pop-off apparatus that could be slipped onto the bases of these cartridges to make the twist easier, let me know. Or better yet, Grimberg, if you're able to make something that would accomplish that, that's going to make this launcher so much easier for people who don't have the hand strength to make that twist happen. Finally, let's talk about functionality. Whether it was 8 gram, 12 gram, or 16 gram cartridge, the carry worked flawlessly. I had absolutely no functional issues at all. I fired other launchers before. I've had feeding issues, I've had pressurization issues, I've had double fires, you name it. I've experienced it all. But with the carry, every single shot worked every single time. Functionality was 100%. I was very pleased. So overall, am I happy with my carry? Oh, you bet I am. It took a while to get here, but you know, it was worth the wait. Finding a solution for the twist to pressurize issue aside, the carry is amazing. It is going to be my EDC, and I do highly recommend it. So thank you, Grimberg, for your fine product. That's all I have for now. I'll see you next time.